There are moments in life when people walk away, relationships crumble, and friendships fade. It can feel like a deep wound, a painful void that leaves you questioning what went wrong. But what if I told you that what feels like a loss is actually God's way of protecting you? What if that closed door, that unexpected departure, or that sudden betrayal was not meant to break you, but to shield you from something you could not see? God sees the full picture of your life, the parts that remain hidden from your understanding. He knows the thoughts and intentions of every person who enters your life, and He knows who is meant to walk with you and who will only bring you harm. Sometimes, when someone is removed from your life, it is not because you did something wrong. It is not because you failed or were not enough. It is because God, in His infinite wisdom, saw what you could not. He saw the conversations you did not hear, the deception you did not recognize, the plans that were being made behind your back. He saw the future, the consequences, and the weight of what keeping them in your life would cost you. So He removed them not to hurt you, but to protect you. The problem is, when we don't understand this, we fight against it. We cling to the people God is trying to separate us from. We chase after the relationships He has ended. We try to make sense of things that were never meant to make sense. Our hearts get attached, and we mistake comfort for purpose. We assume that just because someone was good to us in one season, they are meant to be with us in the next. But that is not how God works. His plans for you are greater than what you can comprehend. And sometimes that means removing people who are not equipped to go where He is taking you. Imagine walking through life with a heavy bag on your back, filled with rocks you didn't even realize you were carrying. Every rock represents a relationship that drains you, a friendship that discourages you, a connection that holds you back. You have been carrying this weight for so long that you don't even recognize how much it is slowing you down. Then, one by one, God begins to remove those rocks. At first it feels uncomfortable, it feels like loss, but over time you begin to realize that what was taken from you was only making your journey harder. God was not punishing you, He was setting you free. The difficulty comes when we don't recognize His protection in the moment. We cry over what was lost instead of seeing the danger we escaped. We beg God to bring people back, not realizing that if He answered that prayer, we would only be walking back into pain. It is in these moments that faith is required. Faith to believe that if God took someone out of your life, there was a reason. Faith to trust that His protection is greater than your understanding. Faith to know that what He removes is never meant to stay. There are people in your life who are only meant for a season. They came to teach you something, to help you grow, to be a part of your journey for a specific time, but when their purpose in your life is fulfilled, holding on to them will only create unnecessary pain. You may not see it now, but one day you will look back and understand why things had to happen the way they did. You will realize that the one who left, the one who betrayed you, the one who suddenly disappeared, was never meant to stay. They were a lesson, not a lifetime. And if God allowed them to leave, it was because they were not meant to go where He is leading you. God's protection is not always obvious. Sometimes it comes disguised as rejection. Sometimes it looks like unanswered prayers. You may have asked God to bless a relationship that was never meant to last. You may have prayed for a friendship to be restored, not knowing that it was only draining you. You may have begged Him to keep someone in your life who was never truly for you. And when He didn't, you felt abandoned, forgotten, even punished. But in reality, He was shielding you from what would have broken you. Think about the times you were spared from something you thought you wanted. Think about the relationships that ended, the people who walked away, the moments that left you feeling empty. Now consider what would have happened if they had stayed. Would you still be growing? Would you still be walking in purpose? Or would you be stuck in a cycle of pain, betrayal, and disappointment? Sometimes we hold on to people out of fear. Fear of being alone, fear of change, fear of starting over. But what if letting go is the very thing that allows God to bring the right people into your life? What if the one He removed was blocking the blessing He wanted to give you? What if their presence was limiting you instead of elevating you? God does not remove without reason. He does not take without replacing. When he closes a door, it is because there is something better ahead. But you cannot receive what is next if you are still holding on to what was. You cannot step into the future if you are stuck in the past. You cannot see his protection if you are too focused on your pain. The question is, will you trust him? Will you believe that his ways are higher than yours, that his thoughts are greater, that his plans are for your good? Will you surrender what you think is best for what he knows is best? Will you stop looking back and start moving forward? Because when God removes someone from your life, it is never without purpose. It is never without reason. It is never without his divine hand guiding you, leading you, and protecting you from what you do not see. When someone walks away from your life, your first instinct is to hold on, to question, to fight against what is happening. Your emotions rise up, telling you that this loss is unfair, that things should have ended this way, that you need to do something to fix it. But faith is not about trusting your emotions. It is about trusting God's plan, even when it does not make sense. Your heart may be broken, your mind may be full of confusion, and your feelings may be screaming at you to chase after what is gone, but God is calling you to trust him. The problem is that emotions are deceptive. They make you believe that what you feel in the moment is the ultimate truth. You feel abandoned, so you think you are alone. You feel rejected, so you think you are unworthy. You feel hurt, so you think God is punishing you, but emotions are temporary and they do not define the reality of what God is doing in your life. Your pain is real, but it is not permanent. Your confusion is heavy, but it is not the end of your story. When God removes someone from your life, it is not your feelings that you should rely on. It is his wisdom, his knowledge, and his understanding that go beyond what you can comprehend. One of the biggest mistakes people make is allowing their emotions to dictate their action. When someone leaves, the pain pushes them to try and pull that person back. When a door closes, the fear of uncertainty makes them try to force it open again. But what if that departure was divine? What if that rejection was God's protection? What if what you are trying to hold on to is the very thing he is asking you to release? Faith means trusting that God sees what you cannot see. He knows the full picture. He knows the outcome of every relationship, every decision, every moment in your life, and if he is allowing someone to leave, it is not without purpose. Think about the times you ignored God's direction because your emotions told you otherwise. Think about the relationships you fought to keep even when they drained your spirit. Think about the people you refused to let go of, even when their presence only brought confusion and pain. Your emotions told you that you needed them, but God was telling you that you did it. Your feelings said that life wouldn't be the same without them, but God knew that life would be better once they were gone. Every time you let your emotions override God's wisdom, you end up prolonging your own suffering. Trusting God's plan means surrendering your need to understand everything. It means accepting that sometimes you will not get the answers you are looking for. You may never know why that person left, why that relationship fell apart, why that friendship faded away. You may never get closure, and you have to be okay with that. Because real closure does not come from explanations. It comes from faith. It comes from believing that God does not make mistakes, that he does not remove without reason, that he is leading you towards something greater, even if you cannot see it yet. One of the hardest things to do is walk away from something your heart still wants. You replay the memories, the conversations, the moments when everything seemed perfect. You convince yourself that if you just try harder, fight longer, love deeper, things will go back to how they were. But that is your emotions speaking, not God. Because if someone was meant to be in your life, they wouldn't have left. If a relationship was truly aligned with your destiny, God would not have allowed it to be removed. And if something had to end, it is because it was never meant to last. Faith is not about fixing what is broken. It is about trusting that what is broken is no longer needed. Faith is about believing that when God takes something away, he is making room for something better. Faith is choosing to stand in the middle of your pain and say, God, I don't understand, but I trust you anyway. Because understanding is not a requirement for obedience. Clarity is not a prerequisite for faith. God does not owe you an explanation. He asks for your trust. Too often people pray for guidance, but refuse to follow it when it does not match their emotions. They ask God to show them the right path, but when that path requires them to let go of someone they love, they resist. They ask God for His will to be done, but when His will removes a relationship, they try to undo it. That is not faith. That is fear disguised as faith. Real faith says, even when it hurts, I trust you. Real faith says, even when I don't understand, I will obey. There will be times when your emotions will try to deceive you, making you believe that God is taking something away because He is punishing you. But God does not operate in punishment. He operates in purpose. He does not strip things from your life to harm you. He removes them to protect you. What looks like rejection is often redirection. What feels like loss is often preparation. And what seems like an ending is often the beginning of something far greater than you could ever imagine. The people who walked away were never meant to stay. The relationships that ended were not meant to continue. And the doors that closed were not meant to be reopened. Your emotions may try to convince you otherwise, but faith demands that you trust in something greater than what you feel. Faith requires you to move beyond your pain, beyond your confusion, beyond your desire to hold on. Faith is letting go of what you think is best and trusting that God knows what truly is. Letting go is one of the hardest things to do. It goes against human nature to release something you once held close, something that felt right, something that once brought you joy. But when God removes someone from your life, He is not asking you to understand. He is asking you to trust. The struggle is not in the removal itself. It is in your resistance to it. You keep holding on. You keep looking back. You keep replaying the past, thinking that if you could just do something differently, maybe things would have turned out another way. But the truth is, no matter how much you fight it, when something is not meant for you, it will never bring you peace. People often confuse attachment with purpose. Just because someone was a big part of your life does not mean they were meant to stay forever. Some people are temporary, placed in your life for a season to teach you something, to help you grow, to prepare you for what is coming next. But when their time is up, holding on to them does not bring growth, it brings stagnation. It keeps you stuck in a cycle of frustration, pain, and unanswered questions. You may not see it now, but every person who leaves your life creates space for something new. You cannot receive what God has for you if your hands are still full of what He has already removed. When you refuse to let go, you are essentially telling God that you know better than Him. You are saying that your plan is better than His, that your understanding is greater than His wisdom. But the longer you hold on to what is not meant for you, the more you delay what is. The more you cling to the past, the more you block your future. The longer you entertain what God has already closed the door on, the longer you keep yourself from stepping into what He has prepared for you. The reason letting go feels so painful is because you are attached to the comfort of what was. Even when something is not good for you, familiarity can make you believe it is. You get used to having that person around, even if their presence is draining. You get used to their words, even if they do not speak life into you. You get used to their company, even if they are not helping you grow. But what is familiar is not always what is best. What is comfortable is not always what is right. Sometimes God removes people from your life because they were never meant to go where He is taking you. Think about how many times you have prayed for God to bless you, to lead you, to take you higher. You ask Him to open new doors, to give you new opportunities, to take you to places you have never been before. But then when He starts removing things from your life, you resist, you cry, you beg, you try to hold on. You do not realize that before God can bring new blessings, He has to make room for them. Before He can take you higher, He has to lighten your load. Before He can give you His best, He has to remove what is no longer serving you. Letting go does not mean you stop caring. It does not mean you erase the memories or act like that person never mattered. It simply means you recognize that their part in your story is over. It means you stop trying to rewrite the past and start trusting God with your future. It means you believe that what he has ahead is greater than what you are leaving behind. You may not see it now, but one day you will look back and realize why things had to happen the way they did. You will understand that the loss you felt was actually a gain. You will see that the closed doors were not rejection, they were protection. There are people in your life who are holding you back without you even realizing it. Their presence is keeping you from stepping into your purpose. Their words are filling you with doubt instead of faith. Their energy is draining you instead of strengthening you. And as much as you may love them, as much as you may want them to stay, God sees what you do not see. He sees the distractions they bring, the harm they could cause, the delay they create in your destiny. So he removes them not to hurt you, but to free you. If you knew what God had in store for you, you would not fight so hard to hold on to what he is taking away. If you could see the future he is preparing, you would not be so attached to the past. If you could glimpse the blessings ahead, you would not waste another moment chasing after what is behind. But faith requires trust. Faith requires you to believe that even when you do not understand, even when it hurts, even when it feels unfair, God is working things out for your good. Letting go does not mean losing, it means making space. Making space for new relationships, for new opportunities, for new blessings that you could not have received otherwise. It means trusting that what left was not needed for where you are going. It means believing that God knows exactly what he is doing even when you do not. Holding on to what is gone only creates unnecessary pain. It keeps you stuck in a place that was never meant to be permanent. It keeps you from walking in the fullness of what God has for you. God never removes without replacing. He never takes without giving something better. But you cannot receive what is next if you are still looking back. You cannot step into the future if you are still holding on to the past. You cannot make space for his best if you are still holding on to what is gone. Letting go is not losing, it is trusting. It is believing that if God removed it, it was never meant to stay. It is knowing that his plan is greater, his purpose is higher, and his blessings are far beyond what you could ever imagine. Sometimes, when God removes someone from your life, it doesn't happen the way you expect. It isn't always a sudden departure. It isn't always a dramatic ending. Sometimes it's slow and subtle. The connection fades, the conversations grow shorter, the bond weakens, and before you know it, they are no longer a part of your world the way they used to be. You look back wondering where things changed, questioning if you could have done something differently, replaying every moment to find the exact place where the shift happened. But the truth is, when God removes someone, it is never random. It is always intentional. Whether it happens suddenly or over time, it happens according to his will. The human heart struggles with change. Even when something is not good for us, we cling to it because it is familiar. Even when we know a relationship is no longer serving us, we hold on because we are afraid of what life looks like without it. Even when God clearly shows us that it is time to move forward, we hesitate, trying to force what he has already told us to release. But you cannot force what is not meant to stay. You cannot hold on to what God has already decided to remove. The longer you try, the more you prolong your own pain. There is something powerful about surrendering to God's will, even when it goes against what you want. There is something freeing about saying, Lord, I don't understand, but I trust you. Because when you try to resist what God is doing, you only create more suffering for yourself. When you try to hold on to someone he is removing, you are working against his plan. And nothing good comes from fighting against God. His plans will always prevail, whether you accept them now or later. His purpose will always come to pass, whether you embrace it or resist it. The sooner you surrender, the sooner you will experience his peace. Holding on to the past keeps you from experiencing the future God has prepared for you. You cannot walk into your next chapter if you are still rereading the last one. You cannot receive the new blessings he has for you if your hands are still full of what he has already taken away. Sometimes what God removes is a distraction. You may not realize it now, but that person was keeping you from something greater. They were pulling you away from your calling. They were filling your mind with doubt when God was trying to fill your heart with faith. They were holding you back from stepping into the fullness of what He has for you. When you pray for God to lead you, do not be surprised when He starts removing what does not belong. When you ask Him to guide you, do not resist when He clears the path. He sees what you cannot see. He knows what is ahead. He understands what you do not. And if He allows someone to leave your life, it is because He knows they were not meant to stay. You may not understand it now, but one day you will look back and see that God was protecting you. You will see that He was redirecting you. You will see that what felt like a loss was actually a blessing. There are times when God removes people because they have already served their purpose in your life. Not every person is meant to walk with you forever. Some are only meant to be there for a season. They come into your life to teach you something, to help you grow, to prepare you for what is coming next. But when their time is up, forcing them to stay will only hinder your progress. God knows who belongs in your future and who is only part of your past. He knows who is meant to walk with you and who is only meant to cross paths with you for a moment. One of the hardest things to accept is that not everyone is meant to go where God is taking you. Some people were only meant to be part of your journey for a little while. Some relationships were only meant to last for a certain season. And when that season is over, you have to trust that God knows what He is doing. You have to believe that He is not removing to hurt you, but to help you. He is not taking away to punish you, but to position you. He is not closing a door to leave you empty, but to make room for something greater. Letting go is an act of faith. It is choosing to believe that what God has ahead is better than what is behind. It is choosing to trust that His plan is greater than your own. It is choosing to move forward even when you don't have all the answers. The enemy will try to make you believe that you lost something valuable, that you are missing out, that things will never be the same. But God's plan is never about loss, it is about gain. He does not take without giving. He does not remove without replacing. He does not close one door without opening another. The moment you stop questioning why, the moment you stop trying to hold on, the moment you truly surrender, that is when peace comes. That is when you begin to see things differently. That is when you realize that every closed door, every goodbye, every unexpected change was part of something much bigger than you could have imagined. Trusting God means believing that His plan is greater than your pain, that His wisdom is greater than your understanding, that His purpose is greater than your desires.